From beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, it is the Neglected News Report. I'm your co-host, Scott Mitchell, here with my brother Kevin.
Добрый день.
That's Russian. I don't know what it means. I took a year of it.
It means good day.
Oh, okay. Anyway, guys, it's nice here, kind of, for a change.
I think the summer's over, personally.
I certainly hope it is. And I've had some criticism from one of my coworkers who listens to the show with his cousin after on YouTube, saying, "Why do you guys always talk about the weather? It's called an icebreaker."
Yeah, and I think Phoenix, Arizona is the only place that actually applauds the end of summer.
Yeah, we like having weather. It doesn't happen too often here. Anyway, but I'm still looking forward to when the high for the day is around 65. That's the days I look forward to.
Yeah, I'll settle for any day that's under 100.
That's true. Someone said, what is it? What was it? I saw this recently, just a few days ago. In Arizona, any day that's under 100 is considered a blessing.
Oh, but speaking of weather, the global warming marchers are marching in New York City this weekend, and guess what it's called? Come on.
What is it called?
What would a good communist call a good parade?
The People's
Weather March. Yay! The Reds turn green.
That's right. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, like 20 years ago, Rush Limbaugh even said that militant climate activist, was it? Global warming is the new socialism.
Oh, yeah, Van Jones. He was named the Green Czar because he found that after the Soviet Union collapsed that would be the next place the communists would hide, the best place for the communists to hide, because he could tell really good lies by scaring people about the weather.
And speaking of communism, that's what we're going to be doing again today. Part 2. Who knows? There might be a part 3, but Kevin's brought up a video from YouTube that he listened to or watched, and it's we're going to play it for you. It's about 10 minutes, almost 11 minutes long, but I think it's really poignant. I haven't heard it, but from what Kevin told me, it's really poignant and relevant to what we're discussing. It's an interview with Aaron Russo, who was a producer-director. He was the director of such movies as Wise Guys, Trading Places, which is one of my favorite Eddie Murphy movies, and The Rose, which was kind of a pseudo-documentary of Janis Joplin starring Bette Midler from the 70s. And
he also, his last work was a documentary before he died. What was it called, Scott?
America... I forgot already what it was.
Basically, it's an expose on the Federal Reserve, our banking system.
And the IRS.
The IRS, yeah.
Anyway, we're going to play this, and then we'll start the discussion. Here you go.
The ultimate goal that these people have in mind is the goal to create a one-world government run by the banking industry, run by the bankers, and they're doing it in sections. The European currency, the euro, and the European Constitution is one part of it. Now they're trying to do it in America with the North American Union, right? And they want to create a new currency called the Amero, right? And the whole agenda is to create a one-world government where everybody has an RFID chip implanted in them. All money is to be in those chips, right? There'll be no more cash. And this is giving me straight from Rockefeller himself. This is what they want to accomplish. And all money will be in your chips. And so instead of having cash, anytime you have money in your chip, they can take out whatever they want to take out whenever they want to. If they say you owe us this much money in taxes, they just deduct it out of your chip digitally.
Total control.
Total control. And if you're like me or you, and you're protesting what they're doing, they can just turn off your chip. And you have nothing. You can't buy food. You can't do anything. It's total control of the people.
And that chip's connected to a database that has your purchasing records, what you do, what you sell.
Everything is in there, you know? And so they want a one-world government controlled by them, everybody being chipped, all your money in those chips, and they control the chips, and they control people, and you become a slave. You become a serf to these people. That's their goal. That's their intentions.
Eric, can you be specific about when you met Rockefeller, how it happened in these discussions?
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said, one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him, and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we go after Chavez in Venezuela. And sure enough, later 9/11 happened, and I remember he was telling me how how you're gonna see soldiers looking in caves for people in Afghanistan and Pakistan and all these places, and there's going to be this war on terror, which is no real enemy, and the whole thing is a giant hoax, but it's a way for the government to take over the American people.
He told you it was going to be a hoax.
Oh yeah. There's no question. He says, there's going to be war on terror, and he's just laughing. There's no, who are we fighting? I mean, why do you think 9/11 happened, and then nothing's happened since then? Do you think that our security is so great here that these people who pulled off 9/11, who were able to, can't knock down another plane? Come on, it's ridiculous. 9/11 was done by people in our own government and our own banking system to perpetuate the fear of the American people and to subordinating themselves to anything the government wants them to do. That's what it's about, and to create this war, this endless war on terror. And that's why and that was the first lie. And the next lie was going into Iraq, to get Saddam Hussein out with his weapons of mass destruction. That was the next lie.
Now, specifically, this was a little over 6 years ago.
This was
11 months before 9/11.
Yeah.
And Nick Rockefeller, who's a lawyer, he's become your friend over the previous years, and he's saying to you that there's going to be this big event, and then out of that we're going to have a war on terror, and it's just going to go on and on.
Right. An endless war on terror without any real enemy. That you can never define a winner.
And did he say that it's going to be perfect because you can't define an enemy? It just goes on and on?
Yeah, because you can't define a winner. There's no one to beat, so it goes on and on forever. And they can do whatever they want. They scare the hell out of the American public. Look, this whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. It's very difficult to say it out loud because people are intimidated against saying it. Because if you say it, they want to make you into a nutcase. But the truth has to come out. That's why I'm doing this interview. The fact of the matter happens to be that the whole war on terror is a fraud. It's a farce. Yeah, there's a war going on in Iraq because we invaded Iraq. And people over there fighting, But the war on terror, that's a joke, And until we discover what really happened on 9/11 and who was responsible for 9/11, because that's where the war on terror emanates from. That's where it comes from. It was 9/11 that allowed this war on terror to begin. And until we get to the bottom root of 9/11, the truth of 9/11, we'll never know about the war on terror.
Aaron, you said that he was, and I think it's important, and I know this about the Rockefellers from Dr. Dennis Cuddy and many others, you'll be 20 years old in a lunch line at college, and notice David Rockefeller. And they're experts at recruiting and getting what they call players, and that clearly he was, I want to make it specific and just get you to reiterate what you said last night about you got 30% of the vote, you were having an effect, you made mad as hell, they knew that you'd started the Constitution Party, They knew that you were somebody who was taking action and getting things done, you already made some big films, had a lot of other successes,
right.
So they were trying to recruit you, and didn't it come down to the point of, hey, we are here to recruit you, and don't worry, your chip's going to say, don't mess with us, this guy's don't touch.
Yeah, yes, that did happen. Now, I was definitely being recruited But it's more subtle than that.
Well, in your words, just go through the process, and then what he said.
Well, what it is we remember we were friends, and we used to go to my house a lot. We'd have dinner, we'd talk, and he'd tell me about business investments I get involved in, or they would help me with this business investment or that business investment. And was I interested in joining the Council on Foreign Relations? I would have to get a letter to join them, but was I interested in that? And, just stuff, leading you on. And I used to say to him that I never really did that because that wasn't where I was coming from. As much as I like you, Nick, your ways and my ways, we're on the opposite side of the fence. I don't believe in enslaving people, and
he would come back with, "Oh, I do." Or,
well, it would be more like,
it's better for them.
It's more like, how do I put it? It was like, what do you care about them? What do you care about those people? What difference does it make to you? Take care of your own life. Do the best you can for you and your family. What do the rest of the people mean to you? They don't mean anything to you. They're just serfs. They're just people. It was just a lack of caring, and that's just not who I was. It was just sort of like cold, it was just like cold, and I used to say to him, what's the point of all this? You have all the money in the world you need. You have all the power you need. What's the point? What's the end goal? And he said the end goal is to get everybody chipped, to control the whole society, to have the bankers, the elite people, the bankers and some governor controlling the world. And I said, all the people in the Council on Foreign Relations believe this way you do? He said, no. Most of them believe they're doing the right thing. A lot of them believe it's better off being socialistic. We have to convince people that socialism is really capitalism. Because America's becoming a socialist country. It's a communist country today. Well, one of the things they told me was that he was at the house one night, and we were talking, and he started laughing. He said, "Aaron, what do you think women's liberation was about?" And I said, I had pretty conventional thinking about it at that point. I said, I think it's about women having the right to work, getting equal pay with men, just like they won the right to vote, And he started to laugh. He said, "You're an idiot." And I said, "Why am I an idiot?" He said, let me tell you what that was about. We, the Rockefellers, funded that. We funded Women's Lib, and we're the ones who got all over the newspapers and television, the Rockefeller Foundation. He says, and you want to know why? He says, there were two primary reasons. And one reason was we couldn't tax half the population before Women's Lib. And the second reason was, now we get the kids in school at an early age. We can indoctrinate the kids how to think. It breaks up the family. The kids start looking at the state as the family, as the school, as the officials, as their family, not as the parents teaching them. And so those are the two primary reasons for Women's Lib, which I thought up to that point was a noble thing. When I saw their intentions behind it, where they were coming from when they created it, the thought of it, I saw the evil behind what I thought was a noble adventure.
Okay, that's it. That was from 2007.
It sends shivers down my spine. Because I've been reading for many years about the New World Order and their plans and so forth. And it's one thing to read. It's a whole nother thing to hear somebody verbalize it, and especially somebody. He's respected, he did something with his life. He was a respected movie producer, and he ran for governor of Nevada, and it's creepy.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's along the lines of that FBI informant that infiltrated the Weather Underground, and that they were playing on Fox News a few years ago. That was telling what their plans were for America.
Yeah, their plans were to exterminate
about 25
million people. People that didn't agree with them. Troublemakers. People that they couldn't re-educate.
And the question I have to pose to people say, oh, this can't happen nowadays. Well, it happened in places like China. It happened in a place like Russia. It happened in a place like Southeast Asia. Why are we different? Why are we different?
And by the way, guess who helped funded the Russian Revolution?
The Germans.
Rockefeller.
Well, yeah.
He was one of them.
Yeah.
Rothschilds, Rockefellers. But reason why this is so important, people might ask, okay, so why would a big capitalist like Rockefeller, why do they like communism? Because it's not for them, it's for us. See, they don't view themselves as part of the human race. We are chattel, cattle, whatever you want to call us. Their role, they see themselves as above the rest of us, and we need to be controlled. And plus, they don't want any competition, economic competition either. How come you never see the Rockefellers in the wealthiest people's list? You see Bill Gates and so forth, because they don't want to be in that list. They're part of that secret hand.
And this kind of stuff's been going on for years. For decades with big business and corporations. I mean, a lot of people back at the turn of the century, Sinclair Lewis wrote the book The Jungle. It was about the dangerous working conditions in the meatpacking industry. Well, not long after that, a lot of laws were passed that basically made it safe for workers to work in the meatpacking industry. It wasn't done, and they credited him for it. You know what? You know what it was? It was the corporations that wanted to keep they wanted to drive out the competition, which was the mom and pop shops, and in order to do that, they decided to use the safety angle, and they helped pass legislation with the Congress.
The Rockefellers have always been extolling the virtues of communism. They loved what was going on in the Soviet Union. They loved Mao. And they like the Chinese model right now. That's the model. That's the world model right now, the Chinese model. Everybody thinks, they've gone China has gone capitalistic. No, they haven't. There's like 50 very, very wealthy Chinese that run that country, and the rest of the workers who have to have suicide nets around their dormitory so they don't kill themselves. Because they're working for 80 cents an hour or what have you. Now, I don't know if did you see the guy of Alibaba?
I haven't seen much of it. I haven't followed that.
Alibaba has just surpassed Amazon as the biggest online store, whatever you want to call whatever Amazon is, in the world. And they interviewed this moron in China, and he was talking about how he's just living this dream come true, how he was, lived on $200 a month, and all of a sudden he becomes rich. No, he didn't all of a sudden become rich. The Chinese communists don't just allow you to become rich. He was chosen. He's being used as a disinformation campaign to the West or what have you. I have no idea what he's being used as, but he was allowed to become wealthy. Mm-hmm. You get favors given to you.
There's no such thing as capitalist communism, guys. The two ideologies are diametrically opposed to each other.
All right, so that leads us to Barack Obama and who he has in his circle of friends that basically are controlling this world right now. I don't even know where to begin. Valerie Jarrett. Do you all know who Valerie Jarrett is? Valerie Jarrett is Obama's right-hand man.
Actually, she's more of Michelle's. She's like Michelle's confidant.
Either or whatever. She's a nightly dinner guest of the Obamas. She is. What is her position anyway?
She's got a lot of influence.
What is her position anyway?
Let me look it up real quick.
Yeah, it's like she's an advisor. It says Valerie Jarrett is the most powerful figure in the White House, rivaling President Obama in the scope of her influence over the fate of the republic. Her personal Secret Service detail attests to the importance of her role in our government in a position that is unelected and unconfirmed by the Senate. She has served as the godmother of Barack Obama's political and personal life, from introducing him to his future wife, Michelle, to integrate him into Chicago's political machine and power structure.
Here's what it says. According to Wikipedia, she is a senior advisor to the President of the United States and assistant to the President for, quote, get this, what does this mean? for public engagement and intergovernmental affairs in the Obama administration. She's a lawyer, businesswoman, civic leader, blah, blah, blah.
Okay, here's a little bit. She's part of that Chicago political machine. And it says here's some of her roots. They're very disturbing and indicative of her ideology. They also connect her to Obama and his ideological roots. I guess her grandparents were Robert Rocon Taylor and Dorothy Taylor. Robert was the first African-American head of the Chicago Housing Authority. Dorothy, a native of Berkeley.
Well, wait a minute. Hold on.
What?
That's not what I'm seeing here on Wikipedia.
Maternal grandparents?
Oh, grandparents. I'm sorry.
Maternal grandparents.
I thought you said parents. I'm sorry.
Her grandmother was a native of Berkeley, was active in early Planned Parenthood, and we've talked about them. That's ironic given Margaret Sanger's Negro Project. You remember what that was? That was basically to eradicate black people. And her 1926 speech to the KKK rally in New Jersey, okay. And her grandfather was a very good friend of Frank Marshall Davis, who was a mentor of Barack Hussein Obama.
Robert Robinson Taylor?
Frank Marshall Davis was an African-American born in Kansas in 1905 and eventually moved to Chicago and joined Communist Party USA. Now, these are friends of the Jarretts, Valerie Jarrett. Valerie Jarrett was actually born in Iran.
Yep, Shiraz, Iran.
She was born in Iran. Her father was a communist. Her mother was a communist. They were best friends with Frank Marshall Davis. And Verdon Jarrett was to become one day Valerie Jarrett's father-in-law. To sum it up, Obama's mentor, Frank Marshall Davis, worked with the literal relatives of Valerie Jarrett, her grandfather, future father-in-law, in Chicago's Communist Party circles in the 1940s. Now, all of this is obviously pure coincidence. To suggest otherwise would result in being branded a conspiracy theorist. But it's been suggested. To suggest otherwise would result in being granted a conspiracy theory. Professor Kangor studiously avoids suggesting any such thing and sticks to the facts, because everyone knows there never was a communist conspiracy, and Barack Obama's life story is completely transparent. That's just her in a nutshell. She's a communist. Her parents were communists. Her grandparents were communists. Now, that transparency thing, that's...
As were Obama's grandparents.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes deep, it goes deep. Now, that transparency, I was just driving around the other day, and I started thinking, transparency, what? I was a Russian linguist. Does anybody remember when the Berlin Wall was coming down and the Soviet Union was disintegrating? What was the term they were using? They were using glasnost. Glasnost. What glasnost is here's one of the definitions. 1980s policy of the Soviet Union under Gorbachev to allow more government transparency. Remember when Obama was talking about, when he first got elected, he said that his government was going to be the most transparent in U.S. history. Well, obviously it's been anything but that, but that's what communists do. They say one thing and do another. But that's glasnost, transparency. I started thinking, so I called my brother, I called Scott up and I said, Scott, have you ever drawn that conclusion before? And he goes, no, I never thought about it. He goes, well, how about perestroika? I didn't even think about what perestroika means.
That was another term that was bandied about back then.
Yeah, perestroika basically means transformation. Where have we heard that before? Transformation. Except the difference was, in the 1980s, these terms were being used to usher the Soviet Union out of darkness, out of communism, into the free world, capitalist system. Now they're being used in English to do the opposite.
You know what, though? They are being transparent in that if you have eyes, you can see the transformation going on. They're doing it right under our noses, folks.
But why didn't the people ask, well, what exactly do you mean by transformation? What do you mean by, transformation from what to what? Nobody ever asked that question, because they were told for 8 years that it couldn't get any worse than Bush. Well, yeah, it can. Yeah.
Mhm.
So what we're being fed now is total transformation, and it's basically from
freedom to tyranny.
freedom to tyranny, capitalism to we're not socialism, communism, whatever. There are as Scott read the 10 pillars of communism last week. There's a lot of them that are alive and well in our society right now.
Last night I watched a movie. I just needed something that was just totally mind candy. So I watched Captain America, the Winter Soldier, and there was one line in that movie that really struck me. You got to remember, Captain America started out in the 40s. All right, he was created in the 40s, and then he went into hibernation or suspended animation for some reason or another, and woke up in our time period. So he's got a different perspective on things, and he mentioned something. He was talking to one of the evil guys, one of the bad guys, who was played by Robert Redford, and he said something to the effect of, if you make life miserable enough or dangerous enough for people, make the world dangerous enough, they will get to the point where they will voluntarily give up their freedom just for security.
Well, that's Hegelian dialectic right there.
Yes. That's what we're going toward right now, folks.
Now, okay, I listened to an expert today. Gosh, I forgot his name now. He's a precious metals expert, and he says the whole thing, in his opinion. Okay, our gold supply. They say that there's a good possibility we don't have any gold. There is no gold because it's been sold. It's been sold in derivatives. It's been outrightly
Because keep in
transferred to Asia.
Keep in mind, the world's gold supply. There's only enough available gold in this world available to fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool. That's all there is. That's why it's worth so much.
So does anybody remember about a year ago? Probably not. I don't mean to sound arrogant or anything, but the Germans asked for their gold back. We store a lot of the world's, we supposedly do, store a lot of the world's physical gold at Fort Knox and other places. And I believe the Germans had several hundred tons, maybe close to 1,000 tons of gold. And we told them, no, we can't. And they said, well, why not? We didn't give any answer, but it's basically because we don't have it. So, what's going to happen is we've even owe the Chinese gold. If they were to ever ask for it, we wouldn't have it either. And there's lots of different things that could happen after that. We could, what would you do if you gave your gold to somebody for well keeping? Let's be a bank or whatever. You'd sue them. Well, we don't sue each other in the world stage. We kind of do other things. We go to war. So, and there's other things China could do if that were to happen too. They could sell off all the dollars that they own of ours, which is trillions and trillions, which would cause our economy to go into hyperinflation because the dollar wouldn't be worth anything because there would be so many of them out there that it would be, because we've been printing for so long. Mm-hmm. So anyway, the reason why we talk about communism is because when the world that we know right now doesn't work anymore and it comes to a screeching halt, what's going to happen when all those people who get government checks, which now, what are they saying? It's 1 out of 3 people, don't get those checks anymore. What do you think is going to happen? Well, there's going to be unrest. There's going to be riots in the street.
It's going to be Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome before long.
Yeah, and then what does the government do in reaction to that civil unrest? Well,
martial law.
They do things like martial law. They take
curfews.
They come down with an iron fist, is what they do. And what form of government do you think is going to be used from that point on to control the people?
It ain't going to be a republic or a democracy.
No, you're not. Your senator isn't going to be able to do anything for you, or your state your representatives. So that's why we're talking about this, because that's when we talk about the Hegelian dialectic, that's what's happened in the past. I know this. This is a model. I mean, it happened in Hungary. Well, it happened in Russia. It happened in Hungary, and it happened in Czechoslovakia. In 1956, in Hungary, they created They created I don't know the Hungarian as much as I do the Czechoslovakian problem in '68, but there was massive unemployment. There was, of course, it was created by those that wanted to see change. So you had massive unemployment, then you had protests in the street, then you had the crackdown, and then you had communism.
Well, there's two other more well-known examples: the Russian Revolution.
Sure.
They that started with riots in the street for bread, because the Tsar was just holding things back. He was putting all the money into the war with Germany on the German front, and after World War I, the Weimar Republic.
Yeah. That
led to Hitler.
Well, that'll show you what happens when you print money like a drunken sailor.
You could go in there. I mean, you could start out at 7 in the morning. A loaf of bread would cost, let's say, the equivalent would cost $4. By the end of the day, it could cost a wheelbarrow's worth of money, $1 million just to buy a loaf of bread. That's how devalued their currency
became. It was
became.
worse than that. If you went into a restaurant, you would pay for your food and your wine right away, because if you waited till after you drank and ate, the price would have gone up. It would have skyrocketed.
And then the thing with this, I think you were going to discuss this anyway, Kevin, but with this thing, this saber rattling going on with Obama, it's not saber rattling. He wants to go to war.
Yep.
Because guess what? People of his sociological and political bent use this as a smokescreen for what they're trying to do. In this case, they're trying to they're trying to deflect you from what they're really doing. It's sleight of hand. You know what happened, like in the '60s when they passed the Great Society programs. What was going on then? The Vietnam War. This is going on now.
Now, why is Obama saber rattling with Putin? Why do you think? I'll tell you exactly why. Putin right now with China and 100 other nations they're developing an alternative currency, which they should. Any sane person would. It's called the BRICS. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, but it's more than those countries. They see what a corrupt currency the dollar is, and how it's based on nothing. And they want out of it. And the whole world, everything's traded on the dollar. Oil, everything's tied to the dollar. And they want out of it. And if China and Russia do this, and the dollar goes by the wayside, overnight, there'll be nothing left of this country economically. Nothing. Zero. The day that oil trading goes off the dollar and everything goes off the dollar, we could print until the cows come home. Print money like we're doing right now wouldn't matter, because we would be the only ones that would be accepting dollars. You'd be using dollars to wipe your. But anyway, that's why we're saber rattling right now, because China and Russia are conspiring against the United States to get totally away from the dollar. And once that happens, we're toast. And the only way to keep that from happening is to go to war with them. And by the way, everybody thinks we're the biggest, biggest badasses in the world. Nah.
No.
China and Russia got everything that we got, trust me.
They have for years. And then, but instead of concentrating on this, Obama's willing accomplices in the media concentrate on things like Ray Rice and Adrian Peterson.
Ugh.
Matter of fact, I'm looking here on Facebook. Our cousin Michael posted something. It's a little sidebar. NBA versus NFL. 36 have been accused of spousal abuse. 7 have been arrested for fraud. 19 have been accused of writing bad checks. 117 have directly or indirectly bankrupted at least 2 businesses. 3 have done time for assault. 71 cannot get a credit card due to bad credit. 14 have been arrested on drug-related charges. 8 have been arrested for shoplifting. 21 currently are defendants in lawsuits, and 84 have been arrested for drunk driving in the last year. Can you guess which organization this is? Is it the NBA or NFL?
Congress.
Neither. It's the 535 members of the United States Congress.
Yeah, it's shoplifting? Really?
And here's the thing. You gotta get yourselves...
Writing bad checks.
You people have to get... And I'm saying you people because I mean you people. I am talking to you because, and I'm not talking down to you, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to you, I'm talking at you. because you got to get your heads out of this thing about Republican versus Democrat and politics. Just because we mention Obama's name or just because we mention Pelosi's name doesn't mean it's always politics. You got to stop you got to get your head out of that mindset and start looking about the things that matter, because these things are not politics. It's about your very freaking survival. It's about the survival of this country, survival of the world as you know it, and the lifestyle you've grown accustomed to. So get used to it.
Yeah.
We're not gonna stop. I'm sorry. I just get a little ticked off about this kind of stuff.
Well, it's so hard to talk to people about this because they have this normalcy bias. They don't. What Scott and I are talking about right now is too horrible to contemplate. We're not even getting into the dirty thing of war.
And they get beyond this thing by saying, well, this is the new normal. No, normal is normal. Normal is just what normal is. This new normal is just a fancy wording to get people used to the change in circumstances. It ain't normal, folks.
Yeah, and until people get their heads out, which they don't appear to be doing. For instance, again, I'll use Facebook as an example, because the reason Scott and I talk so much about Facebook is because you really do get a pulse of what people are thinking out there. It's
kind of like the old town hall in a way.
Yeah. I mean, I can post something about what we just talked about gold and silver. But by the end of the year, they say if things go the way they're supposed to, the gold could be as much as $5,000 to $6,000 an ounce, and silver could be.
And that ain't good for the dollar, folks.
$400. Oh, dollar would be toast. But anyway, let's say I was to post that article. I have over 200 friends, and I would probably get comments. Well, definitely from Scott, but maybe 2 or 3. Yet, you can get a barmaid at a bar taking a selfie of herself will get 30 to 40 comments. Yep. That's all she has to do is take a selfie of herself.
Yep.
So it's like, what are you people purposely committing suicide?
Or someone posts a picture of their dinner.
Yeah. It's like I said, I've had this conversation with a friend of mine. She says, Kevin, I do agree with a lot that you have to say, but why put it on Facebook? People don't want to hear that. And I'm like, why don't they want to hear it? That's the problem.
It's not us. I hate to say it. It's them. It really is. Why I say that is because even as recent as 20 years ago, people would talk about these kind of things. These are things that, the kind of talk that used to go around around the dinner table back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s was about the very stuff we're talking about right now. People would actually talk.
You're going to wake up one day and the world is going to be very, very much different than it is now. You're going to go to your ATM and probably not be able to get any money out of your account because the freaking dollar's crashed. You're going to go to the gas pump and it's going to be $15 a gallon. You're going to go to the grocery store and not have enough money in your wallet to buy a gallon of milk. And it'll happen all at once. When the dollar crashes, we crash. And then there's civil unrest. This isn't science fiction. History's proven it.
That's, the old saying, those who forget history are doomed to repeat it. And we have forgotten our history.
Why did a Hitler come about?
And when I say our history, I mean the history of the world, not U.S. history.
Why did a Hitler come about? Because of hyperinflation. The German mark was worth nothing. Whole wheelbarrows it took to buy a loaf of bread full of marks.
I was telling Kevin earlier today, and I don't remember when I heard this. I think might have been in high school, but it was one of my teachers mentioned this, that when an economic system or a nation gets to a certain point where people have lost all hope and have lost everything, they'll gladly take a totalitarian form of government, because you know what they always do? What did Hitler do? He promised to make sure everyone had food. He promised to make the trains run on time. That was a big one.
So did FDR, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Chicken in every pot, car in every garage, make the trains run on time. He promised. And there's not, now, let me clarify this. There's no difference between them, and any other politician running for an office, except that when the times are tougher, people are willing to listen to anything. They're not as choosy.
And on top of that, we've got open borders. We've got no skilled, not even low skilled, no skilled people coming in across our borders. What What's that going to do when the dollar comes crashing down? You're going to have millions of other open hands asking for food. It doesn't make for a good...
It's collapsing the system. It's
Cloward and Piven.
I couldn't remember the first name. Cloward and Piven.
Yeah, it's collapsing the system. So it's Hegelian dialectic. It's what's the three terms? There's thesis. No, what are the three terms? Basically, it's creating the problem, which they're doing, coming in with the solution, and changing it.
Let me see if we find it.
It doesn't really matter, but it's Hegelian dialectic. It's a term used over and over again. I know we use it a lot, but
and the thing is, folks, look these things up. Don't take our word for it. Do like Glenn Beck says, and that's the thing. For those of you who hate Glenn Beck, he grates on us once in a while too. But the thing about it is one thing I always admire him for. He says, "Don't take my word for it. Look it up yourself."
Oh, he's not the only one. Everybody that I listen to, every program that I listen to, they say the same thing because it sounds so crazy and out there that the average person says, "What? What are you saying?" Scratch.
Well, there's nothing new under the sun, folks.
Yeah, and don't you feel it in your spirit? Don't you feel for some time now in your soul and your spirit that something ain't right? Every time I look at something on the news, I hear something, I have to look at it, and I can't take it for granted anymore. No. I have to look at it and say, who's saying it? How are they saying it? When are they saying it? What you got to just look at it and tear it apart because you can't take any of it for granted. As a matter of fact, when certain people say something, I spin it 180 degrees.
Let me give you an example that's happening right now. You're hearing all this stuff about ISIS. ISIS is an acronym for Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. Now they're calling it ISIL. You're probably saying, oh, not a big difference. You know what the difference is? ISIL stands for Islamic State, Iraq, and Levant. Levant is the rest of the Middle East, basically.
Which includes Israel.
There's a big difference. These people, folks, these jihadists are big on symbolism. They're big on everything. They're big on a lot of symbolism is big with them. Honest to God. It really is. I mean, it's significant to them. So them using ISIL instead of ISIS means basically this is what we want. This is our desire to take over the whole region. That's why it matters.
Who created ISIS?
We did.
Yeah. The Syrian fighters that were ripping people's hearts out and eating them, that's ISIS. That's ISIS right there. They were calling them the Syrian rebels. No. That's ISIS. That's who's beheading people in Iraq right now. And you notice they're carrying M16s. Where do you think they got those?
I mean, I have to applaud Trey Gowdy for going after the Benghazi investigation because I will not be surprised. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I would not be surprised if it comes out that Ambassador Stevens was dealing in guns, dealing in arms.
Oh, of course not. But unfortunately,
Syrian fighters.
One day the truth will be known about everything.
And the reason why I just thought of this is because if it was to be revealed that we were giving them guns, that would have sunk Obama's reelection in 2012.
Oh yeah.
He did it on the sly. He wanted to help them for one reason or another. He did it on the sly, behind the scenes. I will bet you
the truth will be known, but it's going to be too late. The damage, the world events that are going to happen, will have already happened. Now, I want to read you this article. Now, it's from a publication called the National Report, and.
Oh, you're reading that one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know the veracity.
We're not saying we necessarily agree with this, but if it happens sometime in the next few months, don't be surprised. It makes some sense if it's true.
The article is called "Obama to Resign January 1st Amid New Benghazi Revelations." Excuse me. starts out, according to several senior-ranking White House officials, President Barack Obama will resign from office on January 1st, 2015, after learning that a so-called smoking gun story regarding the Benghazi scandal will soon be revealed. Those sources claim Obama will announce his resignation shortly after the midterm elections in November. The decision to resign came after reporters from Fox News were allegedly contacted in August by a survivor of the 2012 Benghazi terror attack, who came forward with shocking video evidence that Obama, then White House Chief of Staff Jacob Lew, and then Secretary of State Hillary Clinton knew that an attack on the U.S. diplomatic facility in Benghazi, Libya, was imminent and intentionally ordered key security personnel to leave the facility and travel 8 blocks away. Sources at Fox News say the unidentified survivor allegedly recorded a video teleconference on his cell phone in which Lew gave the orders while Obama and Clinton watched on. And it says in quotes, "You don't want a guy like Mitt Romney deciding your budget," Lew supposedly states in the video, which Fox News has not yet released. "We need to win this thing, and that means we need to make some sacrifice. Let me be clear. No one will be harmed in this. We're sacrificing a few buckets of paint. That's all. We just need a little nudge in the polls." There's that nudge word again. The sources at Fox say the network was prepared to air the video on August 23rd, but House Oversight Chairman Darrell Issa convinced him to hold off on releasing the footage. White House's sources say 2 identified reporters from Fox News joined Issa in a private meeting with Obama this past weekend on August 30th and agreed to not reveal the video if Obama agreed to resign. White House senior staff negotiated with Issa and the reporters so Obama could stay in office until the end of the year and that he would announce the resignation in November shortly after the midterms. Why they agreed to the terms is unclear. Obama's resignation has been highly sought after by conservatives and Tea Party figures since well before he actually took office in 2009. The Benghazi scandal continues to ignite fiery debate across the United States. It says if the story proves true, Obama will resign at noon on January 1st, 2015, and Biden, oh boy, will be sworn into office. It is unclear who the next vice president will be, but incumbent White House Chief of Staff Dennis McDonough is strongly favored for the role. Biden's office reportedly scheduled emergency meetings with Nancy Pelosi, Tim Kaine, Elizabeth Warren, oh boy, Maryland Governor Martin O'Malley for Tuesday, blah, 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 blah. So, don't know. But it just adds some fuel to the fire that there was something more to the Benghazi thing than we're being told. And it's a little bit of common sense to figure that one out.
I mean, if it did happen, if these events that they're outlining actually happened, yeah, that might be enough for him to resign. But the question is, did it?
Now, if this story is true, it kind of explains why Obama has been sort of distant lately. Even more so, even more aloof than normal.
Yeah. And
that Hillary, remember Hillary disappeared for a while too, because they were talking about her health and so forth.
Yep.
It seems to, it could make sense.
Yeah, who knows? But then Joe Biden. Uh-oh.
Well, yeah, he's like watching a freaking, a clown in a circus.
Yeah, I know. But the thing about it is it would, if this is true, it would take down Obama and Hillary at the same time. Yeah.
Boy, there's so many directions you could go on this. But it's just more of deception. It's just the times we live in. They're crazy. You don't know.
And we're not saying this. You're going to probably a lot of you are probably going to start thinking, oh, it's politics. We're not looking at this as politics. We're looking at this as a survival of the country.
Yeah, because
100%. Because we will. We were talking about this earlier. If I was talking to Mom about this earlier. If the Republican Party gains control of the Senate and keeps control of the House, who would you like to see in leadership? And she and I both agreed we'd rather see Trey Gowdy as Speaker of the House.
That ain't happening.
Than John Boehner. And we sure as heck don't want to see Mitch McConnell as the senior, the Senate majority leader. at all.
Because,
We don't.
as far as the old Republican Democrat paradigm's concerned, I'm just as sickened by the saber-rattling Republicans as I am with Obama and his minions. I mean, look at
John McCain.
John McCain, but also Lindsey Graham.
Yeah.
Now, I don't mean to offend anybody, but that guy's a little light in the loafers. It doesn't sound very genuine when he's rattling any saber.
But he kind of reminds me of Floyd the Barber, but not on as much Valium.
Yeah, it's like we're careening towards this end that no matter how much the American people don't want it, we're going to get it. We're going to get it. We're going to get it. It's either going to start in Syria, and then Russia's going to jump in, or it's going to involve Ukraine. I don't know, but somebody really wants war very bad.
Denying it, folks, is not going to prevent it. Any of this.
And I know it sounds gloom and doom, but you know what? We grew. This is nothing new to America. I mean, if you grew up during the Cold War, you were used to living under the specter of possible war all the time. But this is worse. We never really expected it.
But that's the whole thing. I've talked to people who are in our age group or a little bit older, and I've said this kind of stuff, and they said, "Oh yeah, right. Everyone always says that, but America still stays together." This is different. Just because we've withstood so many storms of the past doesn't mean it can't happen.
And here is the difference, and this is going to be really controversial. The enemy is from within anymore. I know that's conspiratorial. I get it, but
I think it's even more it's deeper than that. I think to a large extent the enemy is us, the voters.
Well, yeah, you get what you get. I mean, you get the voters wanted more Obama. Give me more Obama.
What is it?
Gives me some more Obama.
Give me more of that Obama. What is it? The day after the election in 2012, what did Rush Limbaugh say? In a land of children, Santa Claus is king.
You know what he's saying? Basically, you're voting for the man who's going to give you the goodies.
Mm-hmm.
Well, think about that. Somebody actually questioned this at one time. I can't remember who it was. He questioned whether people who are on welfare, who are on the government dole, should be qualified to vote. Because think about it. Who are you going to vote for? You're going to vote for the guy who's giving you free stuff.
Yep.
And it makes sense. I'm not advocating it.
It's human nature, is all we're saying.
Yeah. I mean,
But sometimes you got to use your head, because you got to use your head on these things, folks. Whether it's human nature or not, you don't have to go with your nature. If you use your head, because a lot of human nature has to do with feelings and emotions in the heart instead of the head. Use your head, folks. Don't ever make decisions based on your emotions, please.
But right now we have 1 out of 3 people in this country getting a check of some sort from the federal government.
There's always more than one solution to every problem. I don't care what anyone says. But the problem is there are easy solutions, all right, and there are difficult solutions. Hang on a minute. There are simple solutions, there are difficult solutions. But not all simple solutions are easy. In other words,
they're easy conceptually, but not easy to implement. Is that what you're saying?
No, they're easy. They're simple. In other words, there's not a lot you have to do, but the pain you have to endure may not be easy for you to endure.
Oh yeah, it's like seeing a 10-foot wall and knowing that that's between you and freedom, but getting over that 10-foot wall is, it's the concept's easy, but
you see, the problem is too many people want the simple solution that's easy, and that is let the government pay their way.
I don't even think that. I think there's just a huge segment of the population now that doesn't even. They just expect it. There's no. They don't think
know anything different.
They don't think of consequences. They don't ask who's paying for it, how they're paying for it. They don't care. There's whole generation. Well, Scott, you sent that. You posted that thing the other day about the children who were killed in the fire,
The woman. What was her response? She was the aunt.
The aunt who was responsible. She left them home alone, and they died in a fire that they started.
What did she say? She said,
She got back there, and she wanted to go into the house because her welfare check was in there. I don't.
Or something.
She seemed totally
oblivious to the fact that her nephews are dead.
They asked her. They said, "Do you feel any responsibility for the deaths?"
She's felt no responsibility.
She said no. She says, "What's wrong with leaving kids home alone? They started the fire."
Yeah.
And then she made a comment about having to return to the scene because
how much she was put out by having to return to the scene.
Yeah, she's made some comment about her welfare check. Can't remember what it was, but it was I just stood in stunned disbelief. But that's what we're producing. You know, those are that woman right there is probably the third generation in her family. That's probably
more likely.
You know, probably lived that way, and it's too bad because it just basically makes animals out of.
It does.
Humans.
I mean, why do they say at parks like Yellowstone Park or whatever they say, and in zoos and stuff, don't feed the animals?
Yeah.
I'm not saying these people are animals, but it's nature of living beings. If someone provides something for them, they're not going to go look for it themselves. They're going to just depend on whoever's giving it to them.
Well, you know how you attract how you can actually get a whole what's a group of pigs called? They're not herd. What do you call a group of pigs? Whatever. If you want to herd wild pigs, you know what you do? First of all, you leave food out. You leave food out for a few days, and then you slowly start building. Start building pens around the food until one day you got them all in there, and then you put the final part of the fence in, and there you got
herd
them.
Of swine.
Yeah, you got a herd of swine. You just you just attract them with some food, some goodies or whatever, and then you got them. They're your prisoners. You own them. And that's what happens in the inner city. That's what destroys families, and that's part of the whole. That's part of the.
Actually, here it says a collective group of pigs is called a drift of pigs or a drove of pigs. Similarly, the collective name for a group of swine can be either
If you want to see what a microcosm for what could possibly happen to us if these bankers' New World Order gets their way, is to look at our inner cities. Look at their destroyed families. No families. You have illegitimacy up around 75 to 80%. Illiteracy. You name it. Every part of the human soul has been robbed of something.
Do you know why there's so much illegitimacy in the areas where they're on the government dole? Government's taking the place of daddy.
Daniel Patrick Moynihan in 1965 warned about it.
Yep.
And he said after it takes off in the black community, it'll go into the white community. And by the way,
Daniel Patrick Moynihan was a Democrat.
Yes, he was. He made a lot of sense in a lot of ways. He just wasn't a far. Today, the Democrats aren't Democrats. They're socialists / commies, as far as I'm concerned.
They just co-opted the Democratic Party.
Yeah, and good Democrats. You know, a lot of them have gone over to the right.
I still say we should trade John McCain for Joe Manchin.
Oh, John McCain is just a self-serving boob.
I'd rather have Joe Manchin in the Republican Party than John McCain.
You know, I've grown up in Arizona. I've been served that plate of crap for I can't tell you how long. The only reason I've had a vote for him because what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Dennis DeConcini?
Jeff Flake hasn't turned out to be all that great either.
No, he's a big disappointment. So, you know, folks, we've been ad-libbing this show today. Hopefully it hasn't been too choppy.
I don't think we got too much about communism.
No, I had a whole bunch. I just wanted to talk more about.
Let's hit it next week.
About who Obama surrounds himself with. The Bill Ayers of the world.
We can do a part 3.
The Van Joneses of the world. These are out and out communists. Bill Ayers was a terrorist.
I think today. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think today served to just. It just we get so frustrated. We get frustrated that people don't see the things we do, and it was probably some of our frustration coming out today, guys. We want to wake people up, and it's like we don't want to sound like Chicken Little. We really don't, and that's probably how we sound to some of you out there, to some people we know. But it's like we can't sit here and say nothing.
And for those of you who are sticking your head in the sand, you can't. You would hear this and you just say, "Who are these nuts?" No, you're going to wake up one day and your way of life is going to be gone, folks.
You know, we have nothing really that qualifies us to do this. We're just two knuckleheads like the rest of you.
And trust me, we have nothing to gain.
Right.
Everything to lose.
But the fact of the matter is we just have our eyes and ears open.
No, we're saddened. I'm saddened.
Well, yeah, we're saddened because of that. We're saddened because of that.
I was the proudest American you could ever wish to. You know, I'd get goosebumps every time I heard the stars.
Well, that's why our eyes and ears are open. Because we know what it's like. I mean, we know what this country used to be.
Yeah, and people are just going along with the change and just thinking it's a normal state of affairs.
Anyway, guys, I guess we'll pick it up where we left off next week then. I know it's kind of might bring some of you down, but try to have a good week.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Hold on. My only escape is being bastardized as well. Football.
That's true.
You know, I want to watch some football tomorrow, but no, I'm going to hear about sexual harassment, wife beating.
Yeah.
You name it. The Florida State athlete who used the derogatory female genitalia part very loudly so people could hear him, and now he's the biggest scourge.
Not to mention enough flags being penalty flags being thrown that what used to be a 3-hour game is now a 4-hour game.
So yes, even Scott and I don't always like to wallow in, you know, pessimism and be morose all day long. We like to have our escapes too, but lately they're not letting us escape.
Yeah. Well, anyway, guys, we'll see you next Saturday. Same bat time, same bat channel. And like I said, have a good week if you can. See ya. Bye.